This narrative is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. All characters, locations, institutions, and events are entirely fictional. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or real events, it is purely coincidental. This video does not depict any real missing persons case. Viewer discretion is advised. November 14, 2008, 6:47 p.m. The last student to leave Hartwell Preparatory Academy that evening was a 16-year-old junior named Marcus Webb. He had just finished serving a 2-hour detention for an incident in chemistry class. As he walked out of the East Wing exit, he glanced back at the window of room 213, the detention hall. The lights were still on. His teacher, Mrs. Catherine Ashford, was still inside, grading papers at her desk. She waved at him through the glass. That wave, captured on the school's grainy security footage, would become the last confirmed sighting of Catherine Ashford. By 7:15 p.m., the lights in room 213 went dark. By 8 p.m., Catherine's husband called the school, concerned that she hadn't come home. By 9:30 p.m., police were walking the empty hallways of Hartwell Prep with flashlights. They found her car still in the parking lot. They found her purse locked in her desk drawer. They found her coffee mug still warm. But Catherine Ashford was gone. No signs of struggle. No signs of forced entry. No signs of anything at all. It was as if she had simply evaporated. In the 16 years since that night, Hartwell Preparatory Academy has sat abandoned. Its windows dark, its doors chained, its hallways slowly surrendering to decay. The official investigation was closed in 2012, classified as unresolved. But the questions never stopped. How does a woman vanish from a locked building with security cameras covering every exit? Why were 23 minutes of footage from that night mysteriously corrupted? What was in the sealed envelope found hidden beneath the floorboards of room 213 3 years later? And why did the school board voted unanimously to close Hartwell Prep permanently, just 6 months after Catherine disappeared? This is the story of the closed school where a teacher disappeared after detention. This is Hartwell Preparatory Academy, and after 16 years of silence, the truth is finally starting to surface. To understand what happened to Catherine Ashford, you first need to understand Hartwell Preparatory Academy, because this was never an ordinary school. Hartwell Prep was founded in 1952 by industrialist Warren Hartwell, a man whose fortune came from manufacturing contracts during World War II and the Korean War. The school was built on 12 acres of wooded land on Crescent Hill, overlooking the small town of Millbrook, Connecticut. From its founding, Hartwell Prep was exclusive. Tuition was among the highest in New England. Enrollment was capped at 400 students. And admission required not just academic excellence, but family connections that stretched back generations. The school's alumni list reads like a directory of American power. Senators, CEOs, federal judges, media executives. The families who sent their children to Hartwell Prep weren't just wealthy. They were the kind of wealthy that shaped policy, influenced elections, and operated in spheres most Americans never see. But beneath the ivy-covered walls and the manicured lawns, Hartwell Prep had always harbored secrets. In 1967, a student named Thomas Whitfield fell from the clock tower under circumstances that were never fully explained. The death was ruled accidental, but rumors persisted for decades that Thomas had been involved in something. Some kind of secret society or initiation ritual that had gone wrong. In 1983, the school's headmaster, Dr. Richard Crane, resigned abruptly in the middle of the academic year. No explanation was ever given. He left Millbrook that same week and was never seen in town again. In 1994, a fire destroyed the original gymnasium. The official cause was electrical failure, but the fire started at 3 a.m. on a night when no one should have been on campus. 3 days later, a maintenance worker discovered that someone had removed all the fire extinguishers from that wing of the building before the blaze. Each of these incidents was investigated. Each investigation was closed without answers. And each time, the wealthy, powerful families of Hartwell Prep circled the wagons, and silence descended. Catherine Ashford walked into this environment in 2001, a bright-eyed English teacher with a master's degree from Yale and a genuine passion for literature. She had no idea what she was getting into, but by 2008, she had started to figure it out. Catherine Ashford was, by all accounts, an exceptional educator. She was 34 years old in 2008, married to David Ashford, a software engineer, and living in a modest colonial house about 15 minutes from campus. They had no children, though friends said they had been trying. Catherine was known for her warmth, her accessibility, and her refusal to treat students differently based on their family's wealth or status. In a school where legacy and privilege often translated into special treatment, Catherine graded everyone by the same standard. This made her beloved by some students and deeply resented by others, particularly those who weren't used to hearing the word no. But it was what happened in the fall of 2008 that set the final chain of events in motion. In September of that year, Catherine was assigned to supervise the school's literary magazine, The Crescent. It was considered a minor extracurricular responsibility, mostly involving reviewing student poetry and short stories. But that year, a student named Daniel Mercer submitted something different. Daniel was a senior, the son of a prominent banking family, and generally considered untouchable due to his family's donations to the school. But Daniel was also troubled, quiet, withdrawn, prone to dark moods that his classmates had learned to avoid. The piece Daniel submitted to the Crescent was a short story titled The Gathering. On the surface, it appeared to be a horror story about a secret society at a boarding school that conducted rituals in the basement of the main building. The narrative described candlelit ceremonies, blood oaths, and a hierarchy of power that protected its members from all consequences. Catherine read the story with growing unease. The details were too specific. The locations described matched actual places on Hartwell's campus. The rituals described echoed the rumors she had heard whispered about since her first year at the school. This wasn't fiction. Daniel Mercer was trying to tell someone what was happening at Hartwell Prep, and he was using the literary magazine to do it. Catherine made a decision that would cost her everything. Instead of publishing the story or rejecting it quietly, she began to investigate. What we know about Catherine's private investigation comes from three sources: her personal journal, which was recovered from her home after her disappearance, fragments of emails that were later retrieved from backup servers, and the testimony of the few people she confided in. The picture that emerges is of a woman who stumbled onto something much larger than she anticipated, and who didn't realize the danger until it was too late. In October 2008, Catherine began quietly interviewing students. She was careful. She framed her questions as concerns about student welfare, about mental health, about the pressures of the competitive Hartwell environment. But she was listening for something specific, and she found it. 3 students, whose names have never been publicly released, independently confirmed elements of Daniel Mercer's story. There was a secret society at Hartwell Prep. It had existed for decades, possibly since the school's founding. Membership was hereditary, passed down through certain families. The society was called the Covenant. According to these students, the Covenant held regular meetings in a location somewhere on campus, though none of them knew exactly where. Initiations occurred every fall, always during the week of the autumn equinox. And the things that happened during those initiations were never discussed, even among members. But the most disturbing detail was this: the Covenant wasn't just a student organization. Faculty were involved. Administrators were involved. And the school's board of trustees, the wealthy parents who controlled Hartwell's finances and policies, were at the very top. Catherine documented everything in her journal. Her entries from late October 2008 reveal a woman becoming increasingly frightened by what she was discovering. She wrote about feeling watched, about finding her classroom disturbed in small ways, papers moved, drawers left slightly open, about a growing sense that someone knew what she was doing. On November 1st, she wrote, "I don't know who to trust. The headmaster, he's one of them. The police, half the force went to Hartwell. I need to get this information out, but I don't know how. I don't know who's safe." On November 10th, 4 days before her disappearance, she wrote her final journal entry. "I've made copies of everything. If something happens to me, David knows where to look. The truth has to come out. These children are being hurt. and no one is protecting them. 2 days later, she gave Marcus Webb a detention for disrupting chemistry class. 2 days after that, she vanished. Let's reconstruct what we know about Catherine Ashford's final hours. 3:15 p.m. The final bell rings at Hartwell Prep. Catherine is seen in the faculty lounge, speaking briefly with two colleagues about weekend plans. She mentions she has detention duty that evening. 3:30 p.m. Detention begins in room 213. According to the sign-in sheet, 5 students were assigned to detention that day. Marcus Webb was one of them. 5 p.m. 4 of the 5 students are released. Their detention sentences were for 90 minutes. Marcus Webb remains. His detention was for 2 hours. 5:47 p.m. Security footage shows a figure entering the east wing through a side door. The figure's face is not visible. They appear to be carrying something, but the image quality is too poor to determine what. 6:12 p.m. The same figure is seen on footage from the second-floor hallway, walking toward the administrative wing. They do not appear on any subsequent cameras. 6:47 p.m. Marcus Webb leaves room 213. Security footage clearly shows Catherine waving goodbye through the window. Marcus exits through the east wing door. 6:48 p.m. to 7:11 p.m. This is where the footage becomes corrupted. 23 minutes of video from all cameras covering the east wing and room 213 are unrecoverable. The school's IT director would later testify that the corruption was inconsistent with technical malfunction and suggested deliberate interference. 7:11 p.m. Footage resumes. Room 213 is dark. The hallway is empty. 7:15 p.m. External cameras show the lights in room 213 going out, but no one is seen exiting the room. 8 p.m. David Ashford calls the school's emergency line, concerned that Catherine hasn't come home and isn't answering her cell phone. 8:47 p.m. School security officer James Whitmore enters the building to check on the situation. He finds room 213 locked from the inside. After obtaining a master key, he enters to find the room empty. Catherine's purse is in her desk. Her coffee is still warm. Her coat is still on the back of her chair. 9:30 p.m. Millbrook Police Department arrives on scene. Catherine Ashford has been missing for approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes. She has never been seen again. The Millbrook Police Department's investigation into Catherine's disappearance was, by any objective measure, inadequate. Detective Harold Simmons was assigned as lead investigator. Simmons was a 20-year veteran of the force and a Hartwell Prep alumnus, class of 1978. From the beginning, the investigation seemed designed to fail. Crime scene processing was minimal. The classroom was not treated as an active crime scene. Faculty were allowed to enter and remove items within 48 hours. The corrupted security footage was sent to a state laboratory for analysis, but the results were never made public. Interviews with students were conducted with parents and attorneys present, standard for minors, but the presence of high-powered lawyers representing Hartwell families effectively shut down any meaningful questioning. Daniel Mercer, the student whose story had sparked Catherine's investigation, was interviewed once. His family's attorney ended the interview after 15 minutes. Daniel was withdrawn from Hartwell Prep the following week and enrolled in a school in Switzerland. He has never returned to the United States. The headmaster, Dr. Franklin Weathers, was cooperative but unhelpful. He expressed shock and concern about Catherine's disappearance, but could not explain. He denied any knowledge of secret societies, dismissed the rumors as campus folklore, and suggested that Catherine may have simply chosen to leave her life behind. Teachers burn out, he told investigators. The pressure of this environment can be overwhelming. Perhaps she simply needed to escape. This theory, that Catherine had staged her own disappearance, became the unofficial explanation that the investigation seemed designed to support. But it didn't explain her car in the parking lot. It didn't explain her purse in her desk. It didn't explain the warm coffee. And it didn't explain the figure on the security footage who entered the building at 5:47 p.m. and was never seen leaving. In 2012, after 4 years of minimal progress, the case was officially classified as unresolved. Detective Simmons retired the following year. He died in 2019, taking whatever he knew to his grave. In 2011, 3 years after Catherine's disappearance, Hartwell Preparatory Academy closed its doors. The official reason was declining enrollment. After the scandal of an unsolved disappearance, many families had withdrawn their children. Applications had plummeted. The school's finances, dependent on tuition and donations, had become unsustainable. But former faculty and staff tell a different story. They describe an atmosphere of fear that descended on Hartwell after November 2008. Teachers began leaving mid-year. Students reported feeling watched. There were rumors of break-ins, of files being stolen from offices, of threatening messages left in lockers. One teacher, who spoke anonymously to a local reporter in 2010, said, "It felt like the school was eating itself. Whatever happened to Catherine, whatever she found, it unleashed something. The people in power were scared. And when they're scared, they're dangerous." The school board voted unanimously to close Hartwell Prep in March 2011. The decision was announced on a Friday afternoon with no prior warning. Students were given 2 weeks to transfer to other schools. Faculty were given severance packages that included strict non-disclosure agreements. The building was locked, the gates were chained, and Hartwell Preparatory Academy began its long, slow decay. But in 2014, something unexpected happened. A group of urban explorers, people who illegally enter abandoned buildings to photograph and document them, broke into Hartwell Prep through a basement window. They spent several hours exploring the campus, photographing the dusty classrooms, the collapsed ceiling tiles, the water-damaged textbooks still sitting on desks. When they reached room 213, they noticed something strange. One section of the hardwood floor, near the front of the room where the teacher's desk had stood, sounded hollow when they stepped on it. The boards were slightly raised, as if something had been pried up and replaced carelessly. They lifted the boards. Beneath them, they found a sealed manila envelope. Inside the envelope were photographs, documents, and a handwritten letter. The letter was dated November 13, 2008, one day before Catherine's disappearance. It began, "If you're reading this, I'm probably dead." The urban explorers, to their credit, did not immediately post their discovery on the internet. They recognized the potential significance of what they had found and contacted both the Millbrook Police Department and a journalist named Sarah Chun, who had been covering the Ashford case for a Hartford newspaper. The police took custody of the envelope but declined to comment on its contents or reopen the investigation. Sarah Chun, however, had photographed the documents before turning them over. What she published in a series of articles in 2015 finally revealed what Catherine Ashford had discovered and why it had cost her life. The envelope contained Item 1, a list of 47 names, spanning from 1952 to 2008. Each name was identified as a member of the Covenant. The list included former students, current faculty, police officers, judges, state legislators, and 3 sitting members of Congress. Item 2, photographs of what appeared to be ceremonial gatherings in a stone chamber. The images were dark and grainy, but the robed figures were clearly visible. Some photographs showed what appeared to be teenage students in the center of circles formed by adults. Item 3, financial records showing payments from a trust called the Hartwell Foundation to various individuals and organizations, including the Millbrook Police Benevolent Association and the campaigns of local politicians. Item 4, a diagram of the Hartwell Prep campus, with a location marked in the basement of the original administration building. The notation read, "The chamber, access through the boiler room, second door on the left, behind the shelving." Item 5, Catherine's handwritten letter. The letter described everything she had discovered over the previous 2 months. Named names. It described rituals. It is alleged that systematic abuse of students goes back decades. And it ended with these words, "I've tried to do this the right way. I've tried to find someone in authority who isn't part of this. But they're everywhere. The police, the courts, the school board, they're all connected. So I'm leaving this here where someone might find it. The truth deserves to survive, even if I don't. To whoever finds this, please don't let them win. Please don't let them silence this too. These children deserve justice. I deserve justice. My name is Catherine Ashford. I was a teacher at Hartwell Preparatory Academy. And if you're reading this, I was murdered for what I knew. The publication of Catherine's documents should have been a bombshell. A missing teacher had left behind evidence of a secret society, abuse of minors, corruption of law enforcement and politicians, and an explicit prediction of her own murder. Instead, the story was buried. The national media, contacted by Sarah Chun, declined to cover it. Editors cited lack of corroboration and potential legal exposure. The documents, they said, could have been forged. The accusations could have been the fantasies of a disturbed woman. The Millbrook Police Department released a statement saying they had reviewed the documents and found no credible evidence of criminal activity. The investigation remained closed. The individuals named in Catherine's list faced no consequences. Several threatened lawsuits were filed against Sarah Chun and her newspaper. The paper's legal team, facing pressure from wealthy and connected families, ordered Chun to stop reporting on the story. She was laid off 6 months later, officially due to restructuring. The families of Hartwell Prep had won again. The wall of silence held, and Catherine Ashford remained missing, her accusations dismissed as the delusions of a woman who had simply cracked under pressure. But the story didn't completely die. Online communities dedicated to mysteries began digging into the case. Amateur researchers filed Freedom of Information requests, interviewed former students and faculty, and slowly assembled a picture of what had happened at Hartwell Prep over the decades. In 2018, a podcast called The Crescent Hill Files devoted its entire first season to the Ashford case. The podcast reached millions of listeners and brought renewed attention to the story. In 2019, 3 former Hartwell students came forward publicly for the first time, describing their experiences with the Covenant. Their accounts matched Catherine's documents in specific, verifiable details that they could not have known unless they had witnessed them firsthand. And in 2021, something happened that no one expected. The Hartwell Preparatory Academy campus was purchased by a development company that planned to demolish the buildings and construct luxury condominiums. Before demolition could begin, a team of investigators, hired by a documentary film crew, was given access to the property. What they found in the basement of the administration building confirmed everything Catherine Ashford had written. The investigators followed Catherine's diagram exactly. Through the boiler room, second door on the left, behind the rusted shelving that had been there since the 1950s. A narrow passage led to a stone staircase that descended approximately 20 feet below ground level. At the bottom was a circular chamber, roughly 40 feet in diameter, with walls of dressed stone that appeared far older than the school building above it. The chamber contained a stone altar at the center, approximately 4 feet high, with grooves carved into its surface that led to drains at the base. Iron rings embedded in the walls, positioned at heights consistent with restraining standing individuals. Ceremonial objects, including robes, candles, chalices, and a collection of daggers with ornate handles bearing the same symbol, an eye within a crescent moon. And in a small antechamber off the main room, they found filing cabinets. The filing cabinets contained decades of records, membership lists, financial accounts, photographs, and detailed minutes of meetings dating back to 1954. They also contained records of initiations, including names, dates, and descriptions of what had been done to students as part of their entry into the Covenant. The descriptions were systematic, clinical, horrifying, and one more thing. In the corner of the antechamber, behind the filing cabinets, investigators found a woman's shoe, a brown leather flat, size 7, the same size Catherine Ashford wore, the same style she was wearing on November 14, 2008. We still don't know exactly what happened to Catherine Ashford on the night of November 14, 2008, but we can now construct a likely scenario. Sometime after 6:47 p.m., when Marcus Webb left the building, someone entered room 213. This was the figure seen on security footage at 5:47 p.m. Someone who had been inside the building, waiting for an hour. Catherine knew she was in danger. She had hidden her documents beneath the floorboards. knowing that her classroom would be preserved as a crime scene if something happened to her. She may have hoped that the evidence would be found before anyone thought to look there. She was confronted in her classroom by one or more individuals connected to the covenant. Perhaps they tried to reason with her. Perhaps they threatened her. Perhaps they offered her money to stay silent. But Catherine wouldn't be silenced. She had already hidden her evidence. She had already made up her mind. What happened next was brutal and efficient. The corrupted security footage, deliberately sabotaged to hide the crime, covered the critical window of time. Catherine was taken from her classroom through a route that avoided cameras, probably through the basement access she had documented, into the tunnels that connected to the chamber. And in that stone room beneath Hartwell Prep, surrounded by the symbols and instruments of decades of secrets, Catherine Ashford met her end. Her body has never been found. The property has been searched, but 12 acres of wooded land offer many possibilities for concealment. The development project was halted after the chamber's discovery, and the site remains under investigation. But the shoe in the chamber tells us she was there, and the people who took her there know exactly what happened next. You would think that the discovery of the chamber would have finally brought justice. You would think that the membership lists, the financial records, the minutes documenting decades of crimes would have led to arrests, trials, convictions. You would be wrong. The development company that owned the property claimed they had no obligation to preserve the site as a crime scene. By the time investigators obtained a court order to halt demolition, critical evidence had already been removed. The filing cabinets were gone. The ceremonial objects were gone. The shoe, the one physical link to Catherine Ashford, had disappeared. What remained was an empty stone chamber that could have been a root cellar, a wine storage facility, anything. The documentary crew had photographed and filmed everything before the evidence vanished. But photographs and video, defense attorneys argued, could be fabricated or staged. The 3 former students who had come forward received death threats and withdrew their cooperation. Sarah Chun, the journalist who had first published Catherine's documents, died in a car accident in 2022. The accident was ruled a mechanical failure. Her notes and files were never recovered, and the individuals named in Catherine's list continued their lives untouched. Some have died of natural causes. Some have risen to even greater positions of power. And some still walk the halls of institutions that were built to serve justice. Judges, prosecutors, officials who decide every day who is held accountable and who walks free. The Ashford case remains officially unsolved. The Hartwell Preparatory Academy campus was finally demolished in 2023. The stone chamber was filled with concrete and buried beneath luxury condominiums. And Catherine Ashford, brave, stubborn, determined Catherine, who refused to look away from what she saw, remains missing. 16 years. No justice. No closure. Just silence. There are things about this case that still don't make sense. Why did Catherine hide her evidence beneath the floorboards instead of taking it to federal authorities? Who would have been outside the local web of corruption? The answer may be that she was already planning to do exactly that. Her journal mentioned contacting someone in Boston, possibly an FBI field office, in the week before her disappearance, but she ran out of time. Why has no one in the covenant ever broken ranks and testified? Fear is the obvious answer. The same mechanism that protected the organization for decades, the knowledge that they could destroy anyone who crossed them, continues to enforce loyalty. Even now, with public attention on the case, the wall of silence holds. What happened to Daniel Mercer, the student whose story started everything? He remains in Europe, reportedly living under a different name. Multiple journalists have attempted to contact him. None has succeeded. Whether he is in hiding by choice or under some kind of control remains unknown. And the question that haunts everyone who has followed this case, is Catherine Ashford still alive? The rational answer is no. The shoe in the chamber, the complete silence for 16 years, the obvious motive for murder, all point to the conclusion that Catherine died on November 14, 2008, or shortly after. But some believe she may have escaped, that the shoe was planted, that somewhere, living under a different identity, Catherine Ashford is still fighting to bring the truth to light. It's a comforting thought. It's almost certainly wrong. But in a case where so much has been hidden, where so much has been destroyed, where powerful people have worked so hard to bury the truth. Who can say with certainty what is possible and what is not? Hartwell Preparatory Academy is gone now. The buildings that held so many secrets have been reduced to rubble, replaced by modern condominiums where young professionals live and work, probably unaware of what lies beneath their foundations. But the school isn't truly gone. It lives on in the memories of those who attended, in the trauma of those who were victimized and the guilt of those who looked away. It lives on in the documents Catherine Ashford left behind, photographs that still circulate online, names that still carry weight in halls of power across the country. It lives on in the questions that have never been answered and the justice that has never been served. And it lives on in room 213, which no longer exists in physical form, but which will forever be the place where a brave teacher waved goodbye to her last student and stepped into the darkness. Catherine Ashford knew what she was risking when she decided to investigate the covenant. Her journal makes clear that she understood the danger, but she did it anyway because she believed that some things are more important than personal safety. "These children deserve justice," she wrote. "I deserve justice." She was right. 16 years later, she still hasn't received it. But the story isn't over. Somewhere, there are still people who know what happened in that chamber. There are still witnesses who could come forward. There are still records that haven't been destroyed, memories that haven't been silenced. The truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep it's buried. Catherine Ashford believed that, and so do we. If you have any information about the disappearance of Catherine Ashford or the activities of the Covenant at Hartwell Preparatory Academy, please contact the appropriate authorities. If you're a survivor of abuse at Hartwell Prep or any similar institution, please know that resources are available. Links are in the description below. And if the story moved you, please share it. The more people who know what happened at that closed school on Crescent Hill, the harder it becomes for the truth to stay buried. Catherine Ashford deserved better than silence. She still does. This video is a work of creative fiction produced entirely for entertainment purposes. Hartwell Preparatory Academy is not a real school. Catherine Ashford is not a real person. Millbrook, Connecticut, as depicted, does not exist. The Covenant is not a real organization. All events, investigations, and discoveries depicted are fictional. This is a fictional mystery narrative in the style of a documentary. It is not based on any real missing persons case, real institution, or real events. We take missing persons cases extremely seriously. If you have information about any real missing person, please contact the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, namus.nij.ojp.gov, FBI, tips.fbi.gov, your local law enforcement. If you or someone you know has experienced abuse, please reach out to RAIN 1-800-656-4673, Child Help 1-800-422-4453. Thank you for watching, and please enjoy the story for what it is. Fiction. Enter the crime.